Welcome to the Messaging Rescue Workshop. Thanks for joining us. As you know, every month we do a messaging rescue workshop where you can submit ads, email campaigns, websites, and other content that you'd like an outside opinion on, especially if something isn't working as well as you'd like to, or even if it is working and you'd like to make it even better. This is your opportunity to submit and get some expert advice. And who are we? We are Austin Lawrence Group. We're a boutique digital marketing and advertising agency that specializes in SaaS and B2B services. And getting messaging right is the key to efficiency on everything else that follows. That's why we like to do these messaging workshops. We live and breathe it every day. So with that, let me introduce the panel here. We've got Ken Lempet, our president. Ken, you want to say a quick introduction?
Thanks, Jason. Very excited to do this deep dive workshop with you guys. Yeah, I can't agree more that messaging is fundamental to everything that follows, and it's sort of like the aim before you shoot. Today, we're going to do a real nice deep dive on a couple of companies where the content was submitted, and I'm really looking forward to hashing it out with you guys.
Great. We also have Rachel Crate.
Hi, yes, I am a digital and content marketing specialist at Austin Lawrence Group. I'm excited to be here. I do a lot of copywriting day to day, so it's a really good opportunity to give some feedback on messaging and copy. And I'm ready to get started.
Excellent. And I'm Jason Myers. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Austin Lawrence Group. And I'm also a nerd when it comes to studying marketing and positioning. I love studying this stuff, critiquing. So with that, let's get into it. So I think our first submission is Eureka.
And it does,
Rachel, are they on the call?
yes, it does look like Marie's on the call. If you would like to join us,
Yeah, Maria, would you like to join us?
I will allow you to talk.
Hello.
Hi. So
How are
Maria, you submitted us some newsletters and some other things. You want to give us a little bit of background on what you're submitting and what you're hoping to get out of it?
Yeah, so I submitted some of our monthly newsletters that we send out. I send a monthly newsletter from Eureka to our entire mailing list. So don't really have the capacity to segment them. And we do want to make sure we have one message that goes out to everyone. So this is kind of this specific one that's on the screen is one of our like demand gen emails that we send out monthly, but our newsletter is something that's really long and it takes a lot of time. So I guess management, executive teams looking at like where I can cut time, and the newsletter is great because it sort of captures everything I've done within the month in one place, but it also I don't know if how effective it is and people are questioning it. So I am too now, I guess.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And this is a typical problem too, right? Like we get pressure to be broad in the messaging because we do a lot of different things or we're talking to a lot of different audiences. And the problem with that, when you can't segment the audiences, is that we end up being too vague and then it doesn't speak to anyone.
Mhm.
So that's the balance that we have to ride. So just looking at this first one, I think you can see a little bit of that. So my biggest concern with this is the context around who you're talking to, because when you say up front, disconnected tools, broken process, lost time, sound familiar, I don't have any context around what you're talking about. So that's probably not going to land on for most people. So when you say disconnected tools, like who am I? And what is my potential problem? What I want you to keep in mind on any time we're doing messaging, especially in B2B, we have to talk specifically about the problems that we're solving, because when somebody comes to your website or they see an ad, to be able to stop the scroll or even a newsletter, you have to hit them between the eyes with a problem that they have, or else they're going to probably roll right past it. So when you say disconnected tools, like what tools are we talking about? Why are they disconnected? What am I trying to do? So you're getting the cart before the horse a little bit here, I think. Rachel, what are your comments on this?
Yeah, I know the concern that you mentioned was you were concerned that it might still be too generic and that you might be missing out on personalizing for the industry. And I think, Jason kind of touched on that a bit already, but I think there is certainly opportunity to be more specific and more. It's difficult when it comes to trying not to be generic when you're trying to speak to a broader audience, which might come out more in the newsletter. But in this sort of email, you can be more specific with who you're sending it to. So I think you can also be more specific in that messaging. We get a little bit more of it towards the middle end here with the companies like Shell, P&G, but I almost think you could put that more at the top. It just let them know right off the bat, oh yeah, this is for me. This is talking to my situation and what I need to look at this email because it's speaking to something that means something to me. Whereas the disconnected tools, broken process, lost time, it might sound familiar, but it might just be a generic sort of call out there that isn't going
Well,
to speak to them, right?
and I will say you are talking about problems, right? But
Yes.
they're not specific enough for me to see myself in those problems,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So for me, this is a familiar space. We see a lot where the real message or the best message is buried, burying the lead. And I think actually the short paragraph that says most field teams aren't failing because of bad tech. They're failing because their process is broken. So there's the real problem, right? If your field technicians are failing, you'd want to read on. And maybe failing at what would be the only.
Yeah, that was my next thing too, is like failing at what is really important. Are we failing to meet revenue? Are we sales teams that are failing to meet quota? Who are we talking about? That's the problem with this.
Yeah, and I just think that there's an opportunity to get that problem agreement, which we're going to keep coming back to that, I think, on this client. But I think a couple of questions I had, Marie. One is why can't you segment? I thought from what we can tell, it looks like you're using the Salesforce marketing
Yes.
engagement.
Yes, using account engagement are a couple of the biggest problems with segmenting is our data. It's not segmented correctly. Like yesterday, I wanted to send out a message just to home warranty prospects, and our database is like 20,000 emails, and I was able to pull, I think the email ended up going out to like 400 people. It's
Hmm.
not a problem I can fix myself, and no one else cares to fix it. So I try so hard and I do what I can, but that's where I'm limited. So it's hard for me. Sometimes I'll send out a message that is a little more targeted towards manufacturers, but it still goes out to my whole list because if I target just manufacturers, it might go to only 1,000 people.
Yeah, so that's data it's almost like the same thing as messaging, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
one of these fundamental building blocks for successful go-to-market. I bet there are services out there that could kind of clean up your data set for you. So that might be a thing to consider depending on budget. Can you outsource to someone to append to your data so that
Yes.
you could get like primary and secondary NAICS codes? That would
Mhm.
probably make a big difference for you, and it probably wouldn't be all that expensive.
Mhm.
Might be a good way to allow these emails to be more tailored to the audience.
Yeah, and is it's definitely what our like C-suite wants us to do. So, it's just getting the message across that it's necessary for the data that we have to get assigned to like a vertical or get assigned to, have the names. Another way I want to target is by job title. And, I don't have many of those available either for our prospects. So those are things that would be helpful. I don't know how we add them in after the fact, but I feel like that's a whole other issue. So, uh,
Well, why don't we do this? We can follow up with you offline about that, but there's definitely data append services and subscriptions you could consider for data
Mhm.
services. So there's lots of data out there, and we might be able to help you. And it's really sort of, it's important, but it's not why we're here. So I don't want to get too lost in it for the meeting.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jason, you want to take control of this again? I'm sorry, I sort of
Sure, that's all right. And just to add to that, the targeting is as important
Yeah.
as everything else. I mean, like there's basically three things that are really important in any kind of campaigns like this. And who we're targeting is probably, 40% of it. Like we need to make sure that we're getting in front of the right audience. So that would help a lot because you want to be able to tailor these messages specifically to who we're talking to and what we can anticipate that their pain points are specifically. That's what gets stuff opened and read.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can do a great job of messaging, but if we're sending field service missives to manufacturing people, they're probably going to be less interested and might unsubscribe too frequently. So,
Mm-hmm.
So here's another one. This is another newsletter, correct?
Yes. This is another one of those emails, yeah, in that same sequence about uh,
So
yep.
yeah, okay. So I will say this one's a little better. So we're looking at construction people working out in the field. Maybe they're maybe an oil rig or a manufacturer there. And then I'm kind of getting more of a sense of the problem that you're solving here in this headline. So this one is better. No signal, no problem. I understand now that you're kind of working is something that has to do with being out in the field and not having access to internet or whatever to make my iPad or whatever I'm carrying with me work. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all good. And like that probably spans across industry just fine, right? But you might want to say something about specifically field teams and what happens if they don't have access to the data in the field because of internet issues. You always want to think again about the problems and what happens if you don't solve those problems or like where are they struggling? Because that's important. Because I can say, I can have a problem. I just don't think it's a big enough one to fix, right? Like I might have a problem getting my kids up in the morning ready for school, but am I going to buy a product to address that? Probably not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so a lot of these, you need to be thinking about, is this a problem that's worth solving? Not having access to data offline is definitely a big problem, but the next step is what down the line problems does that cause because you didn't address it? Is that going to increase the costs? Is it going to make things skyrocket? Is it going to result in angry customers? You got to think through these emotional things that are just going to suck if they don't take advantage of your product.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, that it's something I think it's not often at the top of our minds as the message that we want to put out there is, hey, here's what our product does and how it helps you. But yeah, going that step further into what sort of pain are you going to be feeling if you're not using this can be
Mm-hmm.
an effective way. I did want to point out a slightly different direction, but I agree with Jason where he said this one is more clear. I like this no signal, no problem with the image. It's definitely off the bat more clear to me that this might be something that I like a solution for me than the previous email that we looked at. And I like these stats that you have in here, this 35% or sorry, 35 times increase, 99% reduction. I'm curious if there's a way to bring that more to the front of this message here, or if it would be worth testing this email versus another one that has this stats at the front. I know that it tends to be something that people like. They like that proof, the numbers, the hard cold facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, is this going to a case study? This call to action button kind of looks like it might be, or is it going to a homepage? Like,
Yes.
where does this take you to?
A case study, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Then I almost feel like with the case study, it would be interesting to have those stats more at the front.
And even like put the stat if it's available inside the CTA. So in other words, how Shell saved 35% running field ops without Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Put a stat in there. It's going to make it a lot more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what the subject line is for this email?
I do know.
Is it at the top here in this gray, or is that the preview
That's
text?
the preview text. I just had it up earlier, but I'm not seeing
Well,
it.
I guess it's not super important. I'd say generally Shell is a very big name. So I imagine they're aspirational or a peer for almost every client and prospect you work with.
Mm.
So I would love to see Shell kind of front and center here. It's like no signal, no problem. See how Shell works offline with
Great point.
Eureka.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be much more powerful in the beginning of this email. And I'd love to see Shell in the subject line
Mm-hmm.
with their main benefit. So the headline over the image to me is a little bit I, me, my. And with just a couple of words, see how Shell works offline and maybe get to one of their gains or put it in a little more clearly in the subhead under the image. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a really powerful case that you're making. There's nothing more powerful in this kind of B2B marketing than a case study. And this should be a great one for you. It's a huge global name. So as long as people can imagine themselves having the same problems and resources to solve them. In other words, I'm like a small company, I could never do what Shell does, could be a kind of a cognitive issue. But assuming that people don't have any reason to believe they can't also solve the problem, I would put them up much more front and center. And I think if you A/B tested that, where you put Shell in the subject line and in that kind of top line image, probably outperformed by a fair amount.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Good to know. I don't know. I know the open rate for that one was 20%, and then the one prior was 17.99.
I
And
mean,
then
those are benchmarky kind of numbers. Our better emails are 50, 60%
yeah,
opens.
yeah,
And we don't feel bad when we're in the 20 range. I mean, especially it depends on the condition of the list, how good the list is.
yeah.
So 20% is cool, but I think you'd get your business objectives really met more. I'd lean on Shell a lot. That's all I'm saying. We've buried the lead.
Yeah, yeah. No, that sounds good. I'm definitely going to test that out.
We need to know if it was good or not.
Yes, I will. I will definitely let you guys know.
And one more thing I'd like to comment on this too. I do like the first sentence you have here, like field teams work in the toughest places. That's good.
I'm
Yes, we
agreeing.
agree. And then you're hitting on pain points fairly well, but I want you to twist the knife even more. And I'll give you an example. So
Mhm.
you're saying remote sites, offshore rigs, rural zones. Okay, great. You're giving me the framework, the context of what we're talking about. And then that shouldn't mean lost data, incomplete inspections, or delayed reports. So those are good potential pain points. What would make it stronger is to add in the downstream effect of not fixing it. So it should be that shouldn't mean lost data that results in extra work hours every week. It shouldn't mean incomplete inspections where you have to bring them back out and or whatever that problems that causes, or
Mhm.
delayed reports that result in the boss breathing down your neck wondering why this got messed up.
Mhm.
You got to dig in there and twist that knife so that they identify it. But that would make it stronger. But you're on the right track.
Great, wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So again, third newsletter we're looking at here. This one looks like a release. Is this like a new product?
Yeah, so this is like our big monthly newsletter that I send out every month. It
Mhm.
pretty much includes like a product information at the top. We used to do it from someone, so it used to come from like a CTO or founder, but there's like no buy-in for it now. So we just have to do something generic about the product releases. I think we might be able to have the opportunity to do that. That's something I want to do. I'm curious to know if you think that's worth it or not, because it will be painful. But I like the idea of having it come from a name like our founder or something like that. Yeah. And so this will include product information at the top, and then it'll include usually a customer and a partner feature, and then a blog, and then events for attending. This one had the use case thing because I didn't have a customer to feature because it didn't get approved in time.
Okay. And are you sending this out to
Everybody.
just current clients, or you are sending this out to everybody? Okay.
Mhm.
So what I would say about that then is that the headline Xenon release now live, who cares? If I don't
Mhm.
know who you are, you need to give me a reason to care about that
Mhm.
in the headline. So why did you release this Xenon product? Like you say, it's bringing powerful new features to boost compliance, efficiency, and document management across the Eureka platform. That's really more of what we want to see in the headline. So new Xenon release helps you solve these problems.
Mhm.
It would be stronger here. On the use cases on the right, again, anytime that you can quantify those would be better. So it's not just a case study with Shell or Metro Safety or whatever. It's Metro Safety saves 47% by doing X,
Mhm.
and we want to talk about the problems they solved, and if you can quantify it, that's even better. We want to always put those in the case study or use case headlines.
Mhm.
Rachel?
Yeah, I also just want to point out, Jason, that this newsletter continues on the next two slides.
Let's cover it all at once then.
Okay. So I guess my question is, so you said that you think it's too long. What sections are people most interacting with, like in the types of interactions that you really want from this? You're hoping to generate leads, not just from new prospects, or you want something to come from this, but it can also come from current clients and their referrals, et cetera. So is there like a specific section from here that you're seeing the most interaction with that leads to that result that you're desired from this newsletter?
Yeah, well, this newsletter is supposed to talk to our current customers so they want to upsell. It's supposed to, go to products or prospects so they know what's going on. It's kind of, I guess it would be more like our more brand type
Yeah,
messaging that I send out more than anything, since it typically doesn't link to any of our demo pages, but it's supposed to do a lot, and I feel like it just kind of isn't doing
right.
anything.
When you say you feel it isn't doing it, what kind of metrics do you have for the newsletter?
I mean, it gets probably around the same type of open rates, especially if I change the subject line to not say something like digest. But I would say it probably performs just about as well. I can pull up whatever I did last month and see here. Might take me a second though.
No, that's totally fine. So the reason I ask that is because you had mentioned that the resources aren't there to go and separate this out, segment this out for the different audiences. So you're trying to figure out a way to make it more efficient and still send it to this entire list.
It's not
So
working, right?
yeah, I feel like if there is some solid results on, hey, a lot of people are clicking on this blog, for instance, most likely
Mhm.
that's not the case, but let's just go with that for the sake of the argument
Right.
here. Then you can cut back on something different, maybe find another way to send out that message in a different email somewhere along the line, especially if it's a section that really only speaks to a certain category of this list. So you could send out a separate email to that list with that section. If it comes down to it, that's just being glossed over. Or if the good stuff is buried at the bottom, maybe bring it more up to the top.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know that's a difficult challenge when you don't have the ability to separate it out, because I think that would probably be a more efficient way. But
Yeah. I mean, I can send it. I do send it to, like, I send a version of this that's written to Salesforce employees, and I send a version of this that's written to our partner network specifically. So I do change for like those two audiences. I guess I could probably do that for the customers and prospect audience as well. So if I were to
Hmm.
do that, I guess like as far as making this more interesting to them with that segmentation, what could I do?
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say make sure that the lead article is the most appealing and the most intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's tap into a
Yep.
problem and exploit it that we know everybody has. And then the kind of subsections can find their own audiences. That's no problem, but you got to get them to read it in the first
Yep.
place and open it.
That sounds good.
So
so I'm not a big fan of newsletters.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I hear your pain with your leadership team sort of saying the same thing to you, right?
Well, it's mixed opinions. I think if they were all saying it, I wouldn't be doing it. But there's mixed opinions. So marketing wants to continue. I don't care what emails I send. I just want them to be good. So
Well,
Yep.
there's great content here. And I think the shame of a deep newsletter or the what's disappointing as the person putting the content together is that you put all this great content together and some of it is all the way at the bottom, right? And one of the things we've done successfully with clients that are putting great content out is have them bust up the newsletter. Have it go out in 3 or 4 pieces, not in one long missive. Like, for example, the systems integration partner content on the left here, that's
yeah.
really important thought leadership. And I feel like it's on the second or third of our screens here,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's deep down, deepish down. It's certainly in the middle of your newsletter when that could be a really powerful driver of action if it was sent all by itself. And the other thing in terms of recruiting your leadership, they may have different things they care about. And this could be a great way to get them to get more active on social media and their own profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is responsible for all your partners, having them bang the drum this month about picking the right systems integration partner could be a great way to amplify that message that you're
Mm-hmm.
emailing and have everybody driving to the read more, either from their LinkedIn or other socials, and as well from the single purpose email you might send out for the SI
Mm-hmm.
partner. Because you're obviously thinking through the content at a pretty deep level. And yet, this is the third or fourth thing in the newsletter. And that's kind of a bummer. There's an expression with newsletters, they call them gray mail. And I think it's sort of indicative of that they're a little out of favor. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to make a newsletter, kind of an old school newsletter, work in today's world the way people are consuming content off of media properties like Substack or Medium is still out there. So I just think we might want to reimagine how it's distributed and
Yeah.
what the roles are of your subject matter experts, maybe to make them do more work to get everybody pulling on the oars in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
Thought.
Just
Yeah,
one
no, that
tip.
sounds
One tip of what we do, Maria, is so we do send out kind of a newsletter on Fridays with our podcast for that week.
mm-hmm.
And then inside that email, we will promote a blog post or like for the messaging rescue workshop or something. But we are also doing specific emails on those blogs or the messaging rescues at other times during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So we're basically recycling it in the newsletter so that they kind of get two bites at the apple. But like if we create a blog post to make sure that it doesn't get buried, I will send that out as a singular piece and I will write an email promo like a movie trailer to promote that blog specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's got one link in it, like read this blog.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another way you can kind of deal with it.
Very good.
Yeah, but I think we have to give the good news here, which is I can see it's really apparent to me that there's a big effort being made to put out some great content here. Mhm. And so then
Try
it's
that. The effort is real.
yeah. So it's worthy of experimentation on how it's distributed,
Hmm.
to like this I imagine your partners are very important to the success of implementation and
Hmm.
upsell. And so getting traction for your partners is a kind of an important tactic, even it's a strategic level initiative. So how can we make it more important?
Yeah.
So let's move on to Dispatch. So is this a separate company, or give me the background with
Yeah,
that?
so Dispatch purchased Eureka about 2 or 3 years ago, and Dispatch
Got it.
is a Vista Equity partner company. So we're owned by a private equity firm, and Dispatch and Eureka, basically, the Eureka product is what Dispatch wanted to create, but the Eureka product only works on Salesforce. So for the past couple years, hopefully there will be something soon coming out, hopefully, where the products are integrated. But that's kind of like why they are together. But I
Mhm.
run the full marketing program for both brands and they are completely different. So
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
Great. Okay. And we're looking at, this is not a newsletter, but just a marketing email or a
Yep.
blast. Great. Okay. So not bad. Chaos isn't a strategy. I can kind of get behind that. It's still a little vague, but if you describe it more in the text, I can get on board with it.
Hmm.
Scaling contractor ops, also pretty good pain question. Like maybe here's where most teams break. I like that. The headline is decent. I don't know if you have results on this one, but I think depending on the subject line, might be okay.
Hmm.
Read the blog here as the CTA. We still haven't really given us a real reason that I want to read it. You're talking around it a little bit. So
Hmm.
I love you start missing SLAs, you start losing visibility across regions, can't explain why CX is dropping. Those are good pain statements.
Hmm.
But then like you need to make a powerful promise
Hmm.
in the blog headline. Instead of read the blog, what is the reason that I absolutely have to read this blog? If I agree over here that I have all of these problems, then what is the blog going to do for me? Are you going to tell me in the blog how to solve all those problems? Just kind of bring it home.
Hmm.
Rachel?
Yeah, I agree. I actually wanted to point out that you're starting to do what Jason was talking about earlier here with the speaking on the pains and problems that they'll be facing if they don't have this solution, or hey, you're doing this wrong and now here's all the things that start happening that are bad that you don't want to happen. So I like that you have that at the beginning here. The chaos isn't a strategy. I am less I like it less, like Jason was a little more friendly, but I just think it's very generic, very vague because chaos could, I mean, you have the picture, which kind of maybe can lead me into understanding what context you mean here with chaos, but it could be so many things. It's almost like this headline here could go up there instead, maybe, or something of that sort, since we like that headline. And
Yeah.
it starts to be a little more specific. And then, yeah, honestly, this read the blog, yeah, you could put something in here like read the blog. So now you stop losing visibility across regions, something like some sort of promise that's not, you don't need it to be something outlandish. You want to make sure that you're making a promise that is reasonable.
Hmm.
But yeah, bring in a stat or bring in just something to urge them a little bit more. You have just this like one section or this one sentence, I'm sorry, here that in our latest blog, we break down why
Hmm.
enterprises like yours need a new approach and why nothing or doing nothing is no longer an option. You could almost just expand on that a tiny bit, but I know we like to keep emails not too long because people don't have the attention span that they used to. So, but yeah, putting it in the CTA could be a good way to just grab that attention and not add to the length of the email or anything like that, but
Yeah.
bring out that the feature that we want to bring out.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that people probably don't read the whole thing here, even though it's a relatively short email. And that's why the attention on the headline, subhead, and CTA is so worthy. So read why you need a contemporary FSM, or read why an FSM could save you from missing SLAs, right? Just get them to want to click because they're probably going to read the headline, subhead, and CTA if they get even to the CTA.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I like that it's short. I like that those three statements there: you start, you lose, you can't. My palms are sweaty and I want to know why. It's like it's making me a little fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really good. And I also like that you're starting a competitive positioning with the most FSM tools aren't made for the real world problems you face, right? That's the message you're sending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of cool because now I might have one and you're starting to make me doubt, like, is there more to love here? So I think that that's really, there's a lot in here that's good. A little bit of tweaks that could be pretty powerful.
Wonderful.
I'll be nice. Rachel's the one who isn't nice.
I'm usually the nice one, so we're swapping places today.
Okay, so I'm gonna rip this one a little bit more.
Oh, you can do whatever you want to this. This isn't mine.
By the
Okay,
way,
good. All right,
Marie,
fine.
by the way, are you a one-person marketing department or are there like
Pretty
two or
much.
three?
Pretty much. It's me and my boss. She's the director, and like I pretty much execute the whole strategy and do a lot of the strategy too. And she does the same, I guess. Yeah. I
So that's an
execute the
awful
whole
lot
strategy.
of, sorry?
I execute the whole strategy. Like we just got a dedicated IP address, so I have to send 100,000 emails a month for Eureka and Dispatch. So that's where I'm like just cranking these things out as fast as I can, but they have to not suck. So
Well, it's a lot. I just wanted to empathize with you. I think that's an awful lot of responsibility for two companies with two people. That's we call that the one woman army because it's so often a woman in that position. And
yes, yes, I think you are picking up exactly the feel over here. So yes, but this actually, if this is, did you guys, is this still going out?
Not sure if it's still going out. I pulled it off of your LinkedIn page where it shows the different advertisements that you've been sending out,
Oh
like through
well,
Dispatch.
they got
And
rid
I
of
and I
mine,
pulled
so
this
I
one
can send out
just,
something else.
I pulled this one to make a point, which is like, so this one is less than an ad and more like a sales one-to-one communication, even though it's sponsored, it goes out through people's inboxes. But
Yeah.
the rules, so the new rules are this, before I get into the criticism, the new rules are this. If I can smell sales email, it will get deleted without being read.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everybody. Everybody has developed that skill because we all get so much crap in our inboxes. Executives more so because they get more, but like they get sales pitched every day, all day with very crappy messages. And the reason that they're crappy is because they usually start off talking about themselves, exactly what this is doing. Dear first name at Dispatch, our mission is to help manufacturing brands drive a consistent and repeatable lead and service handover process by enhancing the scheduling experience, improving customer communication, and ensuring a seamless service experience from start to finish. That's hard to read, it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
say, and it says nothing. And it
Mm-hmm.
starts off about you. I stopped reading at Dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
This will have no effect because
Yep.
you're not tapping into problems. You need to, if you're going to do a blanket communication like this, which is essentially an ad, this still is an advertisement. You've got to sell. And to sell, we don't talk about the features off the bat. We get problem agreement. That's the whole idea. Like, I'm going to back up and talk about this because it's very important. We talked about it before. In any messaging, so advertisements, websites, newsletters, one-to-one communications, My job is to attract the people that agree that we have a problem. And if they don't know that they have a problem, then my job is to make them aware that they might have a problem that they didn't think about.
Mm-hmm.
So forget about the features for now. Forget about talking about your mission. Nobody cares about your mission. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry to be blunt, but they don't.
No, yeah, this is great because I mean, we have no, we work with an agency, but we're just shooting off copy for these from like, I'm usually not doing it, but usually it's from like ChatGPT. So it's not even like something nobody's writing these. We don't have anybody to do it. So they just are what they are and then get the strategy pushed out through an agency.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, this type of communication and for your salespeople probably needs some pretty serious overhaul because you've got to start tapping into the problems that you solve. And if you don't know what those are, if you haven't talked to the customers, then that's the next step that you need to do. You need to go talk to customers and really understand why they bought this product from you, like what was going on, what were their struggles, what future state could they not achieve without your system? Those things are really important to know because, and especially like what of those things are unified across your customer set so that I can build it into messaging. Because like 4 or 5 customers say basically the same reasons that we bought it, that we know that we need to use that in our messaging specifically. But
Mm-hmm.
it's all about problem agreement. And the other thing about sending out sales emails, the days of like pushing for meetings and demos and all that kind of stuff initially in the conversation, that is over. You cannot do that. You have to have a much softer sell, almost getting permission to give a pitch in the first place. So
Mm-hmm.
you might, a CTA might sound like this is okay with, could we schedule a time to connect? But the problem is you've given us nothing, no reason to want it. It's basically like, can we connect so that I can give you a sales pitch? No, we can't do that. I don't want that. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to be softer. It's like, hey, if your team is out there working on oil rigs and they don't have access to information that they need or whatever the problem, how is that impacting your business? And you might even leave a question that open-ended and then say, our company helped Shell solve this problem by, you know, 25%. Is that worth a discussion?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that could be a lot more powerful, but for that to work, you're going to have to tap into a problem that we can assume that and nothing about you because we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that until they agree that we have a problem. Then whether it's like on a landing page or in a sales conversation, you can, if they agree on the problem, the next thing that you do is you can point out the deficiencies in the ways that they try to solve that problem today. So in other words, hey, we agree this is a problem. You've probably tried to solve it by doing this process or putting in this piece of tech and it doesn't work very well. And then you provide the reframe, which is how you're doing it differently and better and how that's proven to be more successful. That's basically the formula. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that you can do in the personal conversations or deal with on the web page and things like that. But in the ad itself, it's all about getting agreement on the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that was long-winded. Rachel?
It was long-winded. I don't know if there's anything I have to add that would be different than what you've already said. I have comments on the next one though, unless Ken, you have something to
Okay.
add here.
No, I think we've dwelled long enough on this.
Yeah, no, I got it. It's good though.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So here's another advertisement that was run at some point. I don't know again if this is current, but pulled it up just to make points. So there's a lot going on here. So
Yeah.
my main question for you is like if you saw this ad in LinkedIn, would it stop you from scrolling further?
No, I don't even know. I'm not quite sure where this came from, but yeah, no. Yeah, for sure. This definitely has been something that has ran during my time. I know that, but don't typically.
Are you guys currently advertising?
Yes, it's through an agency. Mm-hmm.
And are you on socials and Google search engine or just
Yes.
on search engine?
Yes. LinkedIn ads, Google ads, Bing ads.
Mhm.
I think that's it.
And so is this creative here, this image? I know you said you'll usually supply them with like the copy that ChatGPT kind of writes, but this image, was that something that,
I don't know. I don't know who made
okay.
this. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think we're using anything that looks like this, but I really don't know. I really don't, which is bad.
Yeah, it could be old. They might have stopped doing LinkedIn advertising probably because it was too expensive and it didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and just making the point, this ad isn't going to work no matter how much money you put behind it
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
has no stopping power.
Right. Right.
And this, it sounds like a recurring theme here, like you're trying to do too much.
Yep.
Like a singular focus. What I tell people is that the idea of advertising or content marketing or whatever is to try to digitally replicate what reps do one to one in the field. So, in other words, if I go to a networking event and I find somebody that's a prospect and I start talking to them, I'm going to start probing for problems that they likely have. And if they don't have that problem, then I'm going to pivot the conversation and try to find another pain point. I don't say, hey, well, we do this because we have all these great features and all this kind of stuff. You don't do that naturally in a conversation. But the
Mm-hmm.
limitation, of course, with advertisements or communications is that I've got one shot at it. So if it doesn't resonate, then I'm gone and that's it. But that's okay because with advertisements, just make them singular on a pain point. You want to probe for one problem. And but even better, if you can do that database project and get it segmented more, then you're going to be able to do that a lot more by talking specifically to either buyer titles or specific industries where you know what they particularly care about. You can tap into that with your ads and content.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel?
Yeah, it's good that this one's a little more specific, I would say, about the centralizing single family rental service operations.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get into the image here, and there's just a lot going on. And I'm sure Ken will speak to this. So I won't take that away from him, but all of this text is like the same size. He loves to point that out. And but it's valid. So there's
Mm-hmm.
also just a lot. It seems like there's just so much being squeezed into this space here. Could we just focus on one thing and have the ad focus on that one thing and make three ads that talk about all of that, each focus on the one thing, just pulling a number. But it's, yeah, we've already established that it doesn't have that stopping power. But maybe if we just had that one singular focus, that could resonate with somebody. It will eventually, right? Someone will scroll on it and say, "Oh yeah, that speaks to me,"
Yeah.
versus there's just a lot being
I don't
squeezed.
even know why this is talking about prop tech and SFR and like the same thing. And I don't really know. I mean, it's the same ish thing, but it's not.
Yeah, so
So
that was my next thing is I'm not sure if the copy here with the SFR is the same as, what's
doesn't even
going on in
match
the
the
image.
image.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
cool. Good to
yeah.
know.
So thanks, Rachel, for not taking the whole thing from me. But so the thing Rachel's referring to is we call it what's important disease, and we just don't know what's important. So
Right.
visually, it's like an awful lot of stuff. And so my challenge to whoever's doing the ads would be take half of these things away. Take
Yeah.
half of them out. Because people don't have that much time to rest their eyes on your ad. So literally, if you had 50% of the content, you'd probably get twice the result without changing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did like, and on LinkedIn, I think it's really important, is you need small audiences that really can be addressed directly. And so there were a number of variations of this creative for different prospect types or customer types, depending
Mm-hmm.
if they're retargeting or upsell ads. So I think there's some good ideas or good thinking, but this is a really tough assignment. Satisfy the client, whether it's an internal one or if the agency did this. Satisfy the client that you're touching on all the messages and actually get people to click. Those are two probably diametrically opposite problems. And so this one leans more towards satisfy the internal client. So your job, which is a very tough one, is to defend the creative from all the cooks that might end up in the kitchen asking for a screenshot or asking for the gain visibility message. Like, where's the gain visibility message? And, it's like, we have room for 1.5 messages. What would you like? So you have to defend the process a little bit. That's very hard and not
Yeah.
always rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that I have needed to get back into, and is like really looking at the ads and what they're and looking like. So this just reminds me I should probably do that.
All right, let's move real quick to another company. Viho pulled these advertisements because we really like them as good examples of what to do.
The one on the left, I'll speak to specifically. It's got a clear message here, a clear focus. It's highlighting a stat, which again is a good strategy. 77% reduction in delivery failures. That would be a problem. We don't want delivery failures. So I think that it's bold, it's big, it's in my face. Okay, I might be having that problem. How can this might help me now reduce that issue? The messaging is clear in the copy. They've got some big names here, trusted by these big names. The promise here, the cut shipping costs 35%, boost customer value 41%. We have a comment to make on those as well. It's in both of these ads here, but I don't want to take all of the talking points, so I'll skip over that. But yeah, they're clean. They have a good, clear message. It's, they could have tried to squeeze 99% on-time delivery rate, 77% reduction, 71% fewer refunds, all of that on there, but they picked the one, made it big and bold, and then put the rest in the copy. And I just think that's a good strategy. It's not too much to try to focus on and sift through. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's some really nice art direction going on here if we contrast this with the ads that we were just looking at. So the art direction is much more skilled and the content is clearer. There's less, it's a less is more proposition. On the left, we have just one promise, not really case study, but we have some social proof. And on the right, we're digging deep into a case study and selling the case study. So I think these are both great examples of how art direction makes a big difference in the appeal of an ad. The other thing I think you were trying to tee up for me, Rachel, thanks so much, is that there's probably 2 words missing on the promise, which is save up to. This is a pretty concrete promise, and I think we're running a risk as an advertiser here that we can't make good on that promise. So,
Yeah.
so Marie, I think this is good. These are good examples to kind of stick on the wall as what we would call a swipe in the old days. These are good swipes. These guys did a good job. Anyway, Maria, I want to thank you so much for submitting your work and allowing it to be critiqued in the public square. This was a really fun deep dive, primarily on one marketing department's efforts. And so you're a brave woman, and we're really grateful for your participation. Speaking for Jason, whose internet seems to be on vacation, it is Friday afternoon after all. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to participate and helping us, and for everyone. If you have questions about anything that went on, please reach out to Jason. He's at jm@austinlawrence.com. If you'd like your own free conversion and messaging review, you can shoot the QR code here, or again, reach out to Jason at jm@austinlawrence.com. For Rachel, Jason, and myself, Ken Lempet, I say thank you so much for a great hour together. Marie, thanks so much.
Thank you. So helpful. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Thank you.